And you can think of these numbers as words. 5, catastrophic damage. 5, catastrophic damage.
Give us some sense of what that means.
There's so much going on with this. Yes, there is the wind, which will bring catastrophic damage, but the slow movement of this, the wind is part of that. You don't want 160 mile an hour winds blowing out hours on end, but also it's the rainfall. So we look at this and
What if where you banked was good for your business and your community? What if modern digital banking were the norm? It's values-based banking, available
process. Now, the most intense impacts Bermuda will feel will be Thursday night into Friday morning. And keep in mind, this is one computer model run. And think about Bermuda's impacts mainly being placed at the later half of this upcoming work week. Then it does pass on by.
Yeah.
The one benefit that Bermuda has is that they start to pick up their forward motion.
Mm-hmm.
And having this come in and out will be a lot better than having it crawl on by. It's also interesting because looking at the wind gusts and in regards to the positioning with Bermuda, look at how wonky the eye looks.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. What are the computer models picking up on that? You know, we'll see. There's still time to look at this for the end of the forecast period, but it does look like we will likely see some watches and warnings issued for Bermuda just off of the computer models and their interaction with the winds.
Yeah, it's true. The key messages that the National Hurricane Center has been putting out, they have been referencing, and they're going chronologically. So we have Jamaica out, the messaging out for Cuba, the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, Bermuda not yet within that purview, but we have time. We have time once it moves out of the Bahamas and then moves toward Bermuda. There's only one reason why this thing's going to pick up speed, too. It's because of trough. A trough's going to be swinging in and pulling
Draw
this thing
that
north.
for you. So, you know, you got this big trough that's going to be coming off the East Coast. That interaction, of course, increases the forward motion of the storm because it's going to get caught up in the jet, and that's going to make it jet on by.
And with that, you do sometimes get that wind field to expand, so it is going to kick up the surf quite a bit.
Well,
That's one
it'll
thing
be
to note.
A storm that will be getting larger in size. Right now, Melissa is fairly compact. As it lifts to the north towards Bermuda, it will be growing in size. That's the natural process that you would be expecting. So we'll have to keep an eye on Bermuda. The moisture from this storm as it lifts up to the north will also be an impact for Bermuda. But interesting twist here, you know, one of our other lead stories here on Fox Weather, of course, more of a nuisance than anything else, is East Coasters are bracing for a wet and stormy Halloween. Again, when you compare it to what's going on across the globe, that is very limited and more of a nuisance than anything else. But it's interesting because some of that moisture that's anticipated for the East Coast could actually be coming in because of Melissa.
It's true. It's pulling that moisture in from the tropics after all. And having that channel of wind that can pull that north, it's definitely a possibility I think the thing is,
And again, we're talking about moisture, not the storm itself.
yeah, not the storm. The storm, the hurricane, at the time of maybe it making a very close call with Bermuda, which I should add has been spared direct hits all season long, despite being within the cone of every single hurricane that we've seen. The hurricane itself, if it still is that, could be on the stronger side. I mean, it could be a Category 2. That's the official forecast right now. So we need to pay attention to how things evolve in Bermuda as we head deeper into the week. But no doubt that our focus does remain through the Caribbean and certainly Jamaica over the next 24 hours. So that trough, let's briefly talk a little more about that, because the trough that's going to scoop Melissa out will have the Northeast and New England locked into the rain. I also don't want to discount the wind. It could be a pretty windy end of the week for folks in the Northeast. Remnants of Melissa, it's not going to be the same storm, no, but as we had discussed, some of that moisture could, yes, enhance some of the rain. But aside from that, I think we need to look at what's happening over land in order for us to understand and capture what this weekend could feature. And it's not just the Northeast either. We're looking as early as tomorrow. There's a system that's going to be moving through the plains, and that is going to bring rain to more than 24 states. I mean, essentially east of the Rockies. Most likely somehow you will be affected by this storm, even if it's just a little bit of rain and it's really no big deal at all. But watching how that ridge of high pressure persists over Canada for a good chunk, at least the first half of the week, but you need something powerful in order to kick that thing out. So as we watch it move and dive in from Canada, we'll actually be sort of undercutting that ridge of high pressure.
You name it. But your equipment, that should never
after filling out the form through my official website.
After 30 years in insurance, here's the truth.
If you live in Montana, Idaho, or Utah and have 0 DUIs in the last 5 years, you're being overcharged.
But they won't call you with a better rate. Why would they?
You're already paying too much, and their shareholders love it. I'd quietly tell my favorite clients, be proactive. Go through my service and get what you deserve. When you click below, you'll reach my website where you just fill out an application. It takes about 5 minutes. It will ask for your zip code, about your vehicle, and some other information.
Watching powerful Hurricane Melissa. It's almost a Category 5 hurricane. Right now, giving you the very latest on it, winds are at 145 miles per hour. 157 miles per hour. That makes it a Category 5 hurricane. So it's a Category 4 right now. It is moving to the west very slowly at 5 miles per hour. It's going to continue to the west for at least the next several hours, very slowly to the west at 5 miles per hour or 7 kilometers an hour. Then it will start to make its turn up toward Jamaica, and a little bit more of a shift. Again, there's going to be subtle changes in this, right? In the last couple of days, it could have been anywhere from East Jamaica to West Jamaica. I'm looking at this a little bit more toward the west now, just because of that due westerly route, which overall is a bad thing because we talked about it days ago. On this track, it just sits over water, and that's why it's able to blossom into that Category 4 to Category 5. It is about 185 kilometers south-southwest of Kingston, or 115 miles south-southwest of Kingston. Now is the time, of course, it is getting into overnight. We want to be where we need to be for this storm. It's going to be a slow go still tomorrow morning. Some of us in our northern zones won't have a ton of action, right? I mentioned the long duration with this, really, especially as we work into late tomorrow. That rain is going to really spread in even more so. We'll get the significant flooding, and then tomorrow night is the worst weather. Sunset tomorrow night into sunset tomorrow into tomorrow night, and early on Tuesday, and much of the day on Tuesday, those hurricane conditions, that's what we're going to be seeing with this. So again, all on track, a little bit more to the west though. That's what I'm seeing. I don't just rely on the models, bit more to the west. Looking down the road too, by the time we get into Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, crossing extreme eastern Cuba with hurricane conditions, and then working its way toward the southeastern Bahamas, back toward the Turks and Caicos. We're taking some of those precautions, especially Crooked Island in south. And meanwhile, as all of this is here, we continue to pump in the rain back toward Haiti, even gustier winds for parts of tonight and then into tomorrow, especially as this makes its turn. So showing you the winds in this, again, the winds are going to eventually be howling tomorrow night. I mentioned letting the kids know about that too, especially for tomorrow night. Now, this is working our way into 10 o'clock in the morning. By the time we have 5 o'clock tomorrow, you can see on Monday, this is when those true hurricane conditions arrive. 5 winds moving in, and you see how it's a little bit more to the west, but all of us get the hurricane conditions at some point as we work forward. This is very early on Wednesday. Looks like that landfall 4, 5, 6 in the morning here in Montego Bay. I want to show you that. Higher winds. But look at this. By the time we get into Tuesday, still the hurricane conditions brushing our northeastern coast of Jamaica. So you could take this map, and then eventually later on Tuesday, it gets out of here by Tuesday night. So you could take this, kind of go back on YouTube, pause it if you need to see kind of the scale of the winds are getting the hurricane conditions out of this. This comes on shore. By the time we get into Tuesday night, again, this will be moving away, always looking for an end in sight. So for tonight, we've had some tropical storm conditions already in some of the bands of rain. Some of us have lost cell service. Some of us have already lost power. Looking at some gust or sustained winds, 50 to about 60, swinging right along our coastline. That's what we'll be on the lookout for, southern coastline, as we go into tonight. Again, it's still hanging out to the south, right? It's still to the south, even as we work our way into much of the day tomorrow. And then it will start to take the turn and start to lift up. So late in the day, we'll have the winds around 80 miles per hour. So really, again, tomorrow morning, you really need to be where you need to be in place for the duration of this, because conditions just continue to go downhill. The work right into tomorrow night, it gets scary, so it's always a good idea to kind of, it's a good night to try to get some sleep. I suggest that just if you can, just kind of turn everything off and just get some rest, because tomorrow night is going to be such a long night. So again, my biggest advice in the short term, aside from all the preps we've been doing, and you can see more of that in the prior videos, I don't want to repeat myself too much, is to get some rest tonight, because by the time we get into tomorrow night and Tuesday morning, this is what we're looking at. Southern coast, winds around 150 miles per hour. Montego Bay, with this more of a westerly track, we're looking at winds now of 120 miles per hour. And as it lifts kind of to the north, we'll get a secondary surge trying to kind of wrap in around this back through Montego Bay. So the news has not been better in our western zones. I was just chatting with the folks at Negril Pup Rescue, which are doing a great job with the animals. So we're looking at, of course, humans, pets. So we're looking at, of course, our property in this, thinking of the animals out there as well. They're doing a great job on Negril. Again, higher winds expected so long this westerly track, which we've been seeing, has been holding and then kind of lifting up to the north. So Montego Bay, we're going to be on the edge of these 150-mile gusts, the potential of that. Where the core of this comes on shore, it looks like as of now it could be very close to Black River or Treasure Beach, but it still could be over toward Milk River, Kingston. We'll just see kind of when it takes its turn, but it has moved a little bit past Kingston to the south, which is telling me the landfall point most likely is Treasure Beach or even a little bit more off toward the west. In this pocket here, and I may shift this a little bit more to the west, we'll see, but severe structure damage, power loss for weeks, and we'll have some isolation from communities. We'll see that all across parts of Jamaica, just because, again, we're going to get some of those mudslides, the significant rain out of this. So this is what we're looking at for the core of this. This is a very dangerous hurricane, regardless if it is Category 4 or Category 5. The potential destruction in this is the same. So again, I'll change these maps a little bit, kind of shift it depending on how these wobble. Large, powerful systems actually wobble, and that does make a difference. So that's why I've adjusted some of the winds. Looking down the road, eastern Cuba, once this moves in Tuesday night, some of the winds could be around 110 miles per hour, 177 kilometers an hour. Near Crooked Island and just south, winds of 100 miles per hour or 160 kilometers an hour. Turks and Caicos, we'll still see the hurricane winds may stay just to the some strong tropical storm conditions, or 96 kilometers an hour for the Turks and Caicos. And again, that's once we get our way into Wednesday. Now, the rain, we've been watching it as we get back toward Haiti. Additional totals of upwards. You see this even red shading in here of 300. An additional 10 to 15 inches of rain on top of what we've already had across the peninsula, and some gusty winds. So thinking of the folks on the ground, of course, kind of sheltering in place. I've been getting a lot of reports from some folks there throughout the day. Jamaica, again, we're watching out for the rain that is going to be intense. There could be a couple pockets that get upwards of 750 to pushing 1,000 millimeters of rain, just kind of getting enhanced with the mountains, hence the catastrophic flooding that is a possibility. Either way, here's a different model, just kind of painting it in. Anywhere in this green shading, which is almost all of us at this 750 millimeters or 30 inches of rain. And because we've seen this shifting a little bit more to the west, and I expect more changes. I trust your judgment, you trust mine. We're going to see a couple changes as we go throughout, and we'll just take care of it together. As this shifted more to the west, that's bringing some of the higher rain totals into our western sections as well. It moves our way, but overall, all of us, Cuba, eastern Cuba, most of the rain totals 250 millimeters or 10 inches, because it's going to get faster. Once it makes us speed up, because it gets caught up into a front. That's why it's turning. There's a front back to the west. If the front's just a little bit slower, it's going to
Taylor Land. I don't know Taylor Land. But that's in Bull Bay, St. Andrew. I guess I would have driven past out there before, but never really look at it. New Haven in St. Andrew and Riverton City. So you know, I answer the call and then I come back. Good morning.
and we continue to expect catastrophic impacts for portions of the Caribbean over the next few days. Jamaica is first, Canada as we get towards the end of this week, but we continue to be extremely concerned about what unfolds over the next few days, and we're here to give you the latest information that we have. And timestamps will be up throughout the entire video. Take advantage of them. Watch whatever you feel like you can hear. And I feel like with a situation like this, you need to get as detailed as possible when it comes to all the information that we have. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. We continue to pray for you folks here in the Caribbean for what's about to happen, unfortunately. So let's get going this morning. So Category 5 hurricane, 160-mile-per-hour storm. I mean, I don't really have to say much on this. This looks the part. It looks like a Category 5. We have it doesn't take a rocket scientist, and this just pretty much looks like that classic buzzsaw looking Category 5 hurricane. So we continue to watch for intensification, even further intensification over the next 24 hours or so, all the way up to landfall, and sometime tomorrow morning along the southern coastline of Jamaica. And I could see this getting all the way into the 170s as far as miles per hour, but right now it's 160. Jamaica here, this is well off the same, but they're going to turn over 12 hours or so. The latest from the National Hurricane interaction with the higher terrain of Jamaica into a Category 4. So by Tuesday afternoon, the center of the storm should be off the northern coastline of Jamaica. And then from Tuesday afternoon to Wednesday morning, so this is a 12-hour period. So Tuesday p.m. to Wednesday 2 a.m., it should get north of Jamaica and make another landfall. Its second landfall, which we now have hurricane warnings up for eastern Cuba. We now have tropical storm warnings up for the entire coastline of Haiti now. Okay, and we now have hurricane watches up for the Turks Caicos Islands all the way through the southern to central Bahama Islands. But it really is liking this area right here, which I believe is called the Acklins. I should pull up my Google Maps, but I'm not. But this is the island right here. It likes as a central landfall. Model Guys is really locked into this area as far as the heart of this system making landfall, the low-level circulation. But the cone is still wide in this area. And by about Wednesday, 2 p.m., it's saying it should be a pretty high-end Cat 2 storm rumbling through the Bahamas. Then by around Thursday, 2 a.m., doesn't weaken a whole lot. Still a Category 2, 100-mile-per-hour hurricane. And then as we go from here to here, which is Bermuda, you're right smack in the middle of this cone. Around 2 a.m. Friday, high and Cat 1 hurricane, 90-mile-per-hour hurricane still, probably begins to lose some of its tropical character towards the end of this work week, Thursday into Friday. And as of now, Newfoundland not in the cone, but this begins to fully lose those tropical characteristics by the time we get into this weekend. We'll see if areas like the Avalon Peninsula gets into this cone a little bit out of the time range here. But like I mentioned, hurricane hunters are diving into this again. So we're about to get new information. Could be a 165, 170 mile hurricane here in the next hour or so. We just have to see. Let's go over some hurricane model guides. And I will tell you that all the hurricane models are initializing too weak for this system as far as millibar. For example, the HFA model says it's a 927, but it's actually 10 millibars lower than this. So we will continue to look at this because it's the only thing we can look at. We get into this afternoon, we'll maintain or either gradually strengthen into even a higher end Cat 5 storm. And then we get into tomorrow morning, and this is when it makes its landfall approach. So somewhere between, Kingston's way over here. This pretty much makes landfall along the central southern coastline of Jamaica. So if you live in this area of Jamaica, whoever gets the worst of the winds will be in that inner eye wall, guys. This is where you could see those 150, 160, maybe even 160 plus mile per hour wind gusts. This is where the true devastation wind-wise will occur. But let's not get it twisted here. The entire island of Jamaica is going to get hurricane force winds, and probably everywhere in Jamaica will probably at least get 100 mile per hour plus wind gusts, just in every area.
Nothing they can do to stop a military-grade sniper scope. It's already banned from Home Depot, Amazon, Walmart, all those big box stores for being too powerful. And now the company behind it is cutting out the middleman, selling over 1.5 million units in the last month, all without those big retailers who just jack up the price tag. What makes this powerful zoom lens unique is that it can be attached to your smartphone camera to make
tomorrow morning, rides over the island, hooks northeast pretty fast, comes up, makes another landfall. And the HFA model is definitely further east with Cuba, but still makes a landfall into eastern Cuba as a major hurricane. Comes up, and it actually misses that area we keep talking about and hooks further east. This brings more of the Turks Caicos Islands into the mix, which are over here. So really affects more so just the deep southern Bahama Island, even the Turks Caicos, and really likes this island right here, which I'm going to pull up Google Maps right here, and we'll see what this is showing here. And I'm going to do this on the fly, so y'all bear with me, but I feel like this is okay just because we're trying to get it as exact as possible. But it really, this model, Mayaguana, hopefully I said that right. But this island here, which I'm not sure if that's the name of the island or not, and I'm going to butcher some names, guys, but I hope you guys know I mean one more so. Still affects that other area I've been talking about right here. But as we continue to move forward here, where does Bermuda show up on your screen? Where are you, Bermuda? Bermuda, right here. We get into Friday morning, and late Thursday night to Friday morning, we see impacts, and then it quickly races off and then heads away. HFB model, here it comes. We're getting into Tuesday morning, makes that landfall right as the sun's coming up into the southern shoreline of Jamaica, and it pretty much likes around the same area as the HFA model. It's going to be tough to figure out exactly where this makes landfall, but it really likes this area right into here. And if we go back and we look at this, it pretty much has that on the cone here. It likes this area right into here is where the actual low-level circulation, the eye of the hurricane, will make landfall, which we know that inner eye wall goes around that eye, right? Here it comes. Category 5 hurricane at landfall, goes over the island, and it hooks east fast, just like the HFA model, but still makes that second landfall into eastern Cuba, but gets certainly south of that area we were mentioning heavily last night, and more so affects the Turks Caicos Islands and the far southern Bahama Islands, and then rumbles through and as a category 2 or 3 hurricane. And then Bermuda gets hit by that northern eye wall sometime late Thursday night into Friday morning of this week. And this could still be a powerful, very large Cat 1, maybe even low end Cat 2 hurricane. H-Wharf model, this continues to be a bit of an outlier, but it's still a possibility. We get into this afternoon, this continues to be a high-end, continues to be a high-end hurricane, category 5. This comes up and makes that landfall much further west into Jamaica. I continue to think this is possible. So this would bring the worst of the conditions for the entire western half of Jamaica. The last 2 models I just showed you, this is right through the heart of Jamaica. Still bringing impacts to everybody else too. But I mean, you see these feeder bands going right through eastern Jamaica. I mean, huge issues. But it's a little bit of an outlier with how west it gets. And it comes up, makes landfall in eastern Cuba sometime Tuesday afternoon, or Tuesday evening, I would say, Tuesday night. Then Wednesday morning, gets north to Cuba, then rumbles through the Bahamas sometime Wednesday. The Bahamas Wednesday looks to be your day in the Bahamas and Turks Caicos Islands. And then where is Bermuda? It actually misses Bermuda pretty good to the east. HMON model, here it comes. HMON model, it really likes the idea of this system getting even stronger and makes landfall sort of between the HAF models and the H-Wharf model. So it actually leans a little bit further west, makes landfall before the sun comes up around 4 to 5 o'clock in the morning into the western southern shoreline of Jamaica, and then moves over Jamaica. And then we get into Tuesday afternoon, kind of makes a quick through the Bahamas early Wednesday morning. Heck, and by the time we get into Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, this is through the Bahamas and the Turks Caicos. And yeah, so impact. So this is still information. Purple, well, this purple area up to 4 across these areas in Jamaica. This burgundy color, that is 16 to 20 inches of rain. Eastern Cuba, inches of rain, little areas of Jamaica. I can see this shifting a little bit further west. We'll have to see. And then that orange is
what if where you banked was good for you and your community?
What if every transaction
if I may, hey Jack, you may want to navigate to the hydro estimator rainfall, which will display satellite estimates of what the rain and that might be interesting. There it is right now. So this is just satellite, so it's quite crude, actually indicating that the southern side there is producing the most rainfall, about 50 millimeters per hour. That black area or more, 60 actually.
Yeah.
But
You're
on
up to
most
60.
sides of the eye wall, there were about 40 millimeters of rain per hour. That's the sort of thing you'll be looking at when the actual main bulk of millimeters per hour, all along the southern periphery there. So that, of course, that is just a satellite estimate, though. It used just as a little guide rather than actual numbers.
Nathan, about the you said earlier you couldn't get from the
or at least the temporary info.
Because I'm getting some data here. I don't know what your data was earlier. I'm getting 100. When it's coming from 100 degrees up to.
So, yeah, that seems to make sense.
Yeah.
Around 30-mile-an-hour winds there. It was a little bit closer at its closest point. They were briefly getting tropical storm force winds, 39 miles